of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable ongoing reality.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Transition Radio's Real Talk with the Cummings. My name is Angela Cummings.
And I'm Lynna Cummings. Thanks you guys for joining us today, wherever time it is in your part of the world.
Yes, and we've got Elliot and Ray Bernaldo joining us so far. Welcome. Hope all of you are safe, healthy, and with a good peace of mind, because I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are having a hard time with. The way of life that you knew is being changed dramatically.
Yeah, it's a different world we woke up to this week and this past week. The new normal, it seems to be.
You know what? 100 years ago, all these modern technologies, all these gadgets, people had what they needed, not what they wanted. And it really perturbs me to think that many people in the world live paycheck to paycheck. That 1 week of the system shutting down, everyone's freaking out because they didn't plan for a rainy day. And I don't know about many of you, but I was taught from a very young age to be a saver, to always worry about tomorrow, not just live for today and be reckless. And I'm thinking that people are kind of seeing like, oh wow, yeah, I shouldn't have gotten that 72-inch TV. I should have saved that money in case you get sick or whatever could happen. You know?
Yeah, I mean, nobody's really planned on a pandemic ever occurring in their lifetime, but the things that can happen in this world are really noticeable now. We are not as grounded as we think we are in this society that we live in. Everything is very unstable, actually. There's no guarantees.
Extremely no guarantees. I mean, even the way our society has been running with these very fragile structure, even the buildings and things of that nature. If something were to happen where the grid would go down and our way of life changes even more, there wouldn't be a remnants of that we lived here. I mean, compared to ancient time where they had structures and, it was just a totally different way of living.
Yeah, it was like there was so much more to society thousands of years ago. That's why there's still remnants of it remaining. But if we were to be the future society that people go and dig up, would they find any remains of us?
No, I mean,
would they know we existed?
Everything's digital. Little by little, we're losing any concrete thing of who we are. We're losing every bit of who we are, and it's pretty sad. So, something like so I would hope that if things don't go back to quote unquote normal, people will learn from what has happened during these times and not go back to the same superficial, materialistic world, spending money like you have a hole in your pocket, and not really looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah, I mean, living paycheck to paycheck is how 80% of Americans live their lives. And that's something that I guess this pandemic has really brought people to their knees to think about,
Yeah, totally. It looks like we're getting a little, I don't know if it's because I have this opened. I wanted to go ahead and share, and then I'll close it just in case it's that's acting up. But this is the latest numbers, of the pandemic that we are dealing with. And I'm going to try to abbreviate because there are bots that kind of like mess with the show whenever you say certain keywords that they don't want you to say. The amount of censorship that we're seeing is incredible. But if you look at the numbers, total confirmed, and this is
what they know of.
What they know of, because
Right.
many people have not been tested. Many people are walking around as carriers. And I want to share in a little bit the different stages of this particular V. And V stands for short of what is taking place here. These are just what they know of, because many people have not been tested. Many people are gone undetected and are carriers. And there's more to it than that, and I will share with you in a little while. But right now, 417,698 seems that, let's see here.
The United States is quickly rising to the top.
Yeah.
We're at 53,268 confirmed cases right now. But if New York City is any indication, holds for the country, news doesn't look like it's a good thing. It looks like the epicenter of this V is going to be here in the good old USA.
Yeah. It's pretty sad, the news that we heard yesterday from our great leader, quote unquote, that his main focus is to get the economy going on the cost of the death of many. And sadly, and that's what we called the show today. What is it that I labeled it again? I forgot.
You labeled it the abortion of convenience.
It's like you got a group of people that are anti-abortion, right? But it's okay to kill people for certain reasons. And so it's okay to kill the older people, which they think that's what's targeting right now. It's and that is not true. This is an equal opportunist V, okay? Very equal opportunity, as we will learn soon enough. So that's why we called it abortion by convenience.
Well, it was based on this comment that a Facebook post had on by this woman that wrote, "It's odd watching pro-lifers tell poor women that a baby's life matters more than financial hardship while making plans to choose money over lives nationwide."
Yeah. So conveniently, nationwide. Okay. When you see an anti-abortion advocate call for letting this thing move through society so we can get the stock market back up, you know that they only pro-life when the weight of the choice falls on others.
Our nation could keep people from starving if there has ever been a time to tax the gross abundance of the privilege to exercise a biblical/Christian ethic. Toward the struggling working poor, it is now.
What does it mean to be a Christian nation? If we care more about protecting of our own full voices than the lives and health of others, we have missed Christ entirely.
A premature restart is about keeping the rich at the cost of the vulnerable. It's an abortion of convenience.
Exactly.
So we abort the weak. We abort the less healthy. We abort the older generation in favor of what? Of an economy? I mean, there was a lieutenant governor of Texas recently that came out with this. He was on an interview with Tucker Carlson over at Fox News. And he basically seen on the cutting board for basically what amounts to euthanasia, the sacrifice of the lives of the elderly in order to make the world a better place.
Yeah,
and he advocated literally that it would be better for us to start up the economy again and get America rolling rather than and let the seniors die and the weaker fall off. But see, the thing that you don't understand is that this V is not just targeting seniors. This V is not just targeting those elderly people that would gladly give their lives for their grandchildren, as according to the lieutenant governor.
Right.
I mean, this is going for the world. I mean,
see, a lot of the information that they have from the beginning was not concrete. They're still learning. There's a lot that they don't know about this particular V. And let's go into the progression, and we're going to call it CD, the little halo V. The C's progression, stage 1, roughly 2 to 4 days after you are exposed. The CV manifests in the form of an acute viral infection. Just like normal, you get your normal little type flu symptoms.
Here are some of the coronavirus symptoms. Sorry, babe.
CV.
Typically experienced: fever, chills, headache, fatigue, sore throat, loss of appetite, swollen lymph nodes, muscle aches. As you can see, it would be nearly impossible to distinguish these symptoms from a typical respiratory infection, flu, the common cold, or a gastrointestinal infection.
And there's been a lot of different information that it could actually affect your digestive system. It's almost like there's different strains out there, and not just one particular strain. So when you see those videos of citizens in China coughing and sneezing, going viral, this is just stage 1 in effect. Here's where things seemingly start to get grim. Without treatment, these symptoms disappear within a week or so. You see, V's are very smart. People don't really understand what a V actually is. They really don't have a lot of information. The layperson doesn't really know. But it's a live mechanism or organism that wants to invade and wants to proliferate inside of you and kind of does things to your organs. So
the infected person is a mere cold without giving a second thought to getting tested. Of course, most Western medical systems would be completely overwhelmed overnight if everyone went to get tested.
So the CV progression, stage number 2. Over the next 14 to 24 days, depending on age and gender, the infected person is in a stage of clinical latency. In other words, they feel like they're getting better. There's no further exacerbation for the most part of certain people. And everybody thinks, hey, that's okay. I'm okay now. I could go out. I could latency stage, right?
I wanted to go into some comments before we get behind.
Sure.
Ray Ronaldo says, in my state, a group of 20-somethings gathered for a CV party, and one of them actually is now a confirmed case.
And that is what's so scary, because we've acted upon this so flippantly, oh, it's nothing, people gathering. I mean, my home state, Florida, they were going to the beaches, spring break, people were making fun of it. And a lot of those spring breakers are now in the hospital. And a lot of them from New York City, who are between the ages of 20 something or earlier, or actually younger than that, and in the 40 range, which is what we're seeing. I mean, alone in New York City, there's over 50% of the cases are from younger people.
So the misinformation is that this V affects only the elderly and those with respiratory problems, those who are already, susceptible to lung damage and stuff. But that's not the case. The case is this: we don't know how many people are really vulnerable.
Yeah.
And this is at such an early stage in the world right now, even though we have how many cases? Over 500,000?
Because we're in that latency stage right now. So Prophecy End of Days joins us, and she says, hi, everybody. Oregon is shut down anyway, and I got the show. And Dylan joined us a little while ago. Because there are
I've already
Oh,
addressed it. I said
yes.
that because
Yeah.
we have other things that try to sabotage our broadcast because
They don't
pick up
want,
things.
yeah, they're out of box. And Sandy joins us and says, hello, beautiful people. Hello, Sandy. Thank you for joining us.
Prophecy says,
Ray.
Ray says, Italy now has more deaths than China.
Yeah.
And the thing about China is that I watched a video that showed like the doctors and stuff like lined up. It looked like a propaganda thing where they were taking off their masks and just like smiling and stuff. China, everyone. What is there to trust about a country under a dictatorship that censors its people? I mean,
I lived in
how
a communist
can you
country.
possibly react to think that China is going to give you credible information that one can believe? I mean, this country is totalitarian.
Right. In my country, Cuba, they would gather and they would tell people what to say. And dare you say anything different because you're either jailed or killed, literally. So when you hear that everything's A-okay now in China, be leery. If this information that I'm giving to you in stages, I got from a very credible source. And, you know, we'll continue reading as soon as we, let's see here, Prophecy Day of Day. It says, that's what I heard. The strain S and L and 1 is a bad one.
Yeah, that's the thing. We have multiple strains going on that are either they're mutating or...
Which is what happened in 1918, which we will go over that timeline as well.
Or they're being introduced to certain population groups.
Yeah. It was interesting today, and they were talking about maybe opening up certain areas in the United States and certain areas.
Oh, yeah, because like the mid-center of the country isn't affected as much, so they can, you know, go back to work and do whatever they want to do, while New York and California, which have most of the people of the United States, you know, well, they're like under lock and lockdown.
Yeah, it's really crazy what we're hearing here. So Marcy joins us. Hey guys, I'm here listening. My Wi-Fi is messing up, keeps buffering, but I'm here.
So Dylan says, I've had all those symptoms, but mainly before all this came about. So maybe I've already had it. I don't know. Some people said that they had similar symptoms back in December.
Right.
You know.
But the thing is, with this particular V, there is not like your typical that your body like now becomes immune. I've heard other things. So let's continue reading here. During this stage, no symptoms are experienced, yet the V infection progresses at a very low speed. So here you have from days 14 to 24. Now they're telling us self-isolate for 14 days. That's not enough, folks. That's not enough at all. Over the next 14 to 24 days, the infected person's in a stage of clinical latency, meaning there's no symptoms. You're like, you think you're all right and cured, yet that infection progresses at a very low speed. Remember, this is a very smart bug. Okay, this bug is not your typical bug. It's like not you know, we're not dealing with what we think we're dealing with.
The CV accumulates in your lung tissue and starts to replicate itself. With more particles of the CV created, they are shed into the air.
So very, very, what's the word that I'm looking for? Contagious at this point. You're walking around with no symptoms. You know, you think you already went through the worst of it, but now because it's the particles are shedding into the air because it's doing something to your organs, especially your lungs. This is why you'll see medical articles and news reports about it being invisible, you know, but yet they're not testing those without any symptoms. And those, you know, everyone is in danger here.
Everybody. Yeah.
Everyone. Yeah.
Furthermore, the virus lack of activity means you will pass all control tests typically done in a hospital.
The VLAX, yeah. It is probably the only way to have a chance of diagnosing the CV at this stage is either through a chest CT or an X-ray or a PCR test. So, you know, they're giving you these tests and you may come out negative, but that's because it's hidden. It's even hidden from your own immune system. Okay, so unless you have an X-ray to show the damage, because the damage that it's doing to your lungs, you need to find out through a CT or X-ray or a PCR test.
For this reason alone, international authorities are issuing travel bans under the guide that it's not a great idea to let symptom-free carriers travel and enter other countries, although this will not outright stop it from spreading. We were watching a video that a couple that travels around in a van, and basically they're vanners, and they can't leave Argentina to go up to Uruguay because they have closed the borders there. Right. They don't want to spread any chances of V up into the country of Uruguay from Argentina. So they were forced to leave their van and to fly up to the United States.
Yeah. So, is it your turn?
No.
The CV disease progression stage number 3. This is where things start to get really nasty with the CV. CV-19 will severely damage the lungs and lead to a cytokine storm, which is an overproduction of the immune cells activating compound, usually seen in people who are chronically inflamed. Now notice in the beginning, it's hiding from your immune system. It doesn't want to let your immune system know that something is wrong. So you're not having any symptoms, but you're a carrier. It's a very smart bug.
Major lung infections start taking place, and this eventually leads to systemic sepsis due to the inflammation spilling into your body's circulation. Sepsis is a potentially life-threatening condition caused by the body's response to an infection.
The body normally releases chemicals into the bloodstream to fight an infection. Sepsis occurs when the body's response to these chemicals is out of balance, triggering changes that can damage multiple organ systems. So it's not like a regular cold. It's not like a regular V that goes in, does whatever, you get sick, and you heal. Now you're walking around with damage well beyond the typical.
If sepsis progresses to septic shock, blood pressure drops dramatically. This may lead to death.
And if you remember some of the earlier videos in China, people were just dropping. In young people, elderly people, they were just dropping. They would just fall flat. And that is why. So when you see videos, people on Twitter randomly dropping out of nowhere, it's because of their blood pressure falling to dangerous levels.
With this being said, there are 2 kinds of stage 3 you need to be concerned about. CV stage 3 mild. Stage 3 encompasses roughly 85% of patients at this stage.
The CV stays in the lung tissue at a low level, but is still highly contagious at this point.
When amongst patients who recover, there is organ damage in the lungs, GI tract, cardiovascular system, and the male testes.
So a lot of people have been dying from heart attacks because of it, because they've caused a lot of damage to the heart tissue. There's damage in the GI tract and even the male testes. So symptoms in mild stage 3 include fever, chills, headache, fatigue, sore throat, night sweats, loss of appetite.
CV stage 3 severe makes up the other 15%, where patients are most likely to die or remain handicapped for life, i.e. measures such as oxygen support are needed. Symptoms in severe stage 3 include pneumonia, viral and bacterial, pulmonary embolism, lung fibrosis, lung thrombosis, heart attack from blood clot, stroke from blood clot,
multi-system organ failure. And in case you think that outbreak of CV matches that of other historical V outbreaks, think again.
In summation, what you have is a runaway inflammatory response causing potential biological system failures, which potentially proves to be fatal.
And now you know why quarantine lasting 30 days are virtually useless. Anything else, like the 14-day quarantine in Hubei, is even worse because it provides false security in which people will be unknowingly spreading the CV around.
your best bet is at detecting the CV as soon as possible would be within the first 2 to 5 days of stage 0. Failing that, stage 1 and stage 3.
So pretty much what we're seeing, this false sense of security after 14 days you're fine, according to what I just read or what we just read. I have a really gut-wrenching feeling that we haven't really seen even a little bit of what this is going to do. And if we go back, and I don't know how many of you have actually studied the 1918 pandemic, but before we go into that, let's see if we have any.
Well, I wanted to read and this is not an older person. This is a young mother who has 2 young children. And yesterday she's been writing on Facebook and has been kind of like sounding the alarm as to this is not just something that affects older generations. This is a millennial problem as well. For most of the past week, I was feeling a bit better each day and thought the worst of pneumonia and whatever caused it were definitely behind me. Unfortunately, over the course of the day yesterday, my symptoms worsened again, and now it's gotten to the point where I'm back to being unable to lay down at all because the chest pressure is too severe and I can't breathe at all if I'm not upright.
So what we just read regarding the stages, what's happened to this individual is now when your immune system responds to bacteria inside your lungs, fluid develops. So that's the pressure that she's feeling. And that's how pneumonia, bronchitis, and all that stuff takes place. Where's it again? Okay. Right now, as I'm writing this, I have a lot of intense chest pressure and pain. My resting heart rate is sky high because the body's working overtime. And my throat and upper respiratory system feels that raw sensation as if I inhaled a bunch of cleaning chemicals.
Unfortunately, my husband is also feeling very unwell with intense fatigue, feeling easily winded, and some bouts of feeling disoriented and unable to process thoughts. He also has a lot of nasal congestion, a symptom that I don't share.
So like 2 people in the same household are sharing 2 different types of symptoms. So it's all dependent on your immune system and how your body reacts to this particular V. Oddly, neither of us have more fever now. My last fever was just over a week ago. For now, so you know how they test people walking into restaurants a few weeks ago if you had a fever, they won't let you in. So now that the fever's not even there, for now the recommendations I'm getting from the doctors are the same as before. Continue to monitor vitals at home with the existing home care equipment. Stay in touch with the doctor and avoid coming into a hospital unless those vitals become more critical and or symptoms continue to worsen dramatically.
We're still unable to access a CV-19 test despite our symptom progressions.
That's crazy.
Despite my pneumonia and despite my existing high-risk issues. And she's in Salem, Oregon.
And can you imagine people like that? I'm sure there's many, okay, who are not being counted because they haven't even had a test.
They're not.
We still are okay, so I've been debating all day whether to say anything because I didn't want to alarm people. But I think say anything because I didn't want to alarm people, but I think it's best to be honest because I just have no idea what will happen next. I admit I'm scared. The constant sensation of not getting enough air really gets to you. I was asthmatic as a kid, and not breathing is a very scary thing.
I don't know how much I'll be able to post of these symptoms if these symptoms continue. So please hear me once and for all. The only safe practices right now are to avoid any and all contact with everyone you're able to. I know it sounds extreme, right?
Right.
Stay home, no visits, no unnecessary errands for non-essentials. Go to the grocery store if needed,
right.
Not just because you're missing sugar out of the cupboard.
By now, everyone should have a supply of food. If you have to ration the way you're eating, do so. Because every time you go out there, it's like adding a bullet to that chamber.
Please, for the love of God, take this seriously. I am begging you all, no matter what state you live in or how many cases you supposedly do or don't have in your area, there is no more time to delay on this.
This V can survive up to 17 days on surfaces. I found that out through an article of one of the cruise ships that had individuals that were infected, and they were still testing the surfaces. 17 days later, they still found remnants of the V. Now, as I said earlier, this is not your typical influenza, it's not your typical flu, it's not your typical V. This, in my humble opinion, is something that we have not seen before. And in 1918, we did go through a pretty bad pandemic. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Let's see what we have here.
Sandy says, I heard on the news that they already found a medicine in Iran that they already made tests and now waiting some firm to buy it to start mass production.
I'd be leery of stuff like that because there's going to be a lot of people claiming that they have a cure. And if a vaccine takes as long as it does, over a year to make, I don't know if there's a cure, especially what we've been hearing, how the stages of progression of this particular V and what it actually does. So, you know, it's, I don't know. I don't know how accurate that is. I mean, yeah, it's, so let's see here.
So Elliot said,
UK went into lockdown yesterday.
And that is a very smart thing. An entire nation, country, as big as India, is now under lockdown for 21 days. This is not something that the world is messing with. There are, the Olympics have been shut down. You know, I don't know what in the world this country's leadership is thinking in just relaxing.
This is all they think about.
Relaxing the restrictions on Americans to contain this. But I am so glad that the governors are still in charge of their states, because no matter what the president does or doesn't want, the states still have the rights to keep their, you know, lockdowns in place.
And prophecy end of days says we can't even trust our own government, much less China. Exactly. And let's see here. Ray, said it feels like I'm in a movie. That's what I said to you the other day. I feel like we're in some apocalyptic type movie, you know, because it's,
and they're really popular right now to watch.
Yeah, they are.
So Ray says, I'm immune compromised. I'm stuck at home and fine with it. But my hubby is an over the road driver who can't, and he can't come home.
Wow. Yeah, I feel really bad for a lot of the drivers. You know, they can't really go into restaurants. I mean, and they could be like carriers as well as they're delivering. They're traveling across. So we don't even have a clue how this is going to play out. If it's anything what happened in 1918, we're in for a big surprise, because I believe that now, obviously, we're more mobile. Things are a lot more different than it was back then. And I have a feeling that this V is on steroids.
Well, back then, the world of 1918 was a world of steamships and, you know, very, very limited, and railroads.
Right,
so
right.
We're talking about now we have air travel. We have people that jet set from one end of the globe to the other, and the potential of being able to spread different diseases and things is very possible.
Yeah. And so let's see here. The president just announced Ishtar, April 12th. We could be out of this. That's what, and it's like, really, you know, yeah, let's get everybody in churches gather for, you know, and like, it's like, is he in his right mind? I mean, we're looking at disaster if that does take place.
But there are a lot of people in the country that are really in agreement.
Oh, of course, because this is, there are people that put money over people's health. It's like, it's unheard of. Do you realize if we just chalantly just ignore all of this, that the economy, once everybody starts getting it and more people die, is going to go down the drains? But now with lives taken, in people's organs, because as we heard earlier, even if you do survive this, you might be dealing with lung damage, heart damage, and all sorts of different damages.
I mean, there's a guy that we've been following on YouTube.
Mhm.
His name is Mark Bell,
Mhm.
and he was really, I mean, I couldn't believe the words I heard. I want people to see exactly what some people want to have happen in this country. In this video that I shared on Facebook, this man is sharing and literally saying that everything should just go back to normal and everyone should just get on with life
Mhm.
and infect each other. Okay. Infect each other.
Mhm.
And the weaker Americans should just die
Right.
because it's too bad, but oh well, people die.
Right.
This guy reflects the same attitudes as President Trump.
And he has a lot invested because he's a small business owner. He's got, he wants to continue to sell his product. He wants to continue his lifestyle,
It's ridiculous because what happened in 1918 is not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And the cities that practice social distancing, that quarantine themselves, that close themselves off to interaction and business as normal, they're the ones that fared better. We have a roadmap out of this pandemic, and it is only going to be survivable if we follow the roadmap that worked, not the one that broke.
Mhm.
In Philadelphia, Armistice Day was a parade that they put on,
Right,
and
right.
they ignored
Yeah.
they ignored the rules, and they didn't listen. City of San Francisco did the exact opposite. They quarantined their town. They
Yeah,
locked
and
it
we're
down.
going to go through all that timeline, share with them. Marcy says, yeah, I've had a dry cough past 3 days and extreme fatigue, but that's it. A pretty extreme fatigue, though, like can't get out of bed. And I hope that you don't have it, but this particular V has different effects on different people, depending on gender, depending on age, and depending on immune response. And according to the stages that we read, this is not as cut and dry. But you can even be tested, and the V is hiding from your immune system, and they won't be able to tell unless they took an X-ray or did a CT scan.
And some others, and you might think this is crazy talk, but some others say that it's FIVEG that's actually turning on these things.
Yep.
So I know it doesn't sound like for people that don't believe in that kind of thing being possible, but things could be getting triggered by networks that are in place.
And there's I know that people don't want to look at the bigger picture, but there is something very, very diabolical, if you could say it, and so let's see.
Ray says, my daughter's flying from Hawaii to CVS Thursday.
And Prophecy End of Day says, my glands under my jaw swelled up for a couple of weeks, then moved into my jaw, and then yesterday into my temples by my eyes. It hurts. I think I was fighting something off. What we heard about the FIVEG is that it breaks down. I mean, there are people that are getting rashes. There are people that are all sorts of different strange reports of symptoms. So, we I'm speechless because we haven't even remotely understood what's ahead. They say I already have mast cell activation syndrome. Wow.
And Sandy goes says, Lynna and Mark, did you hear about the news about Iran? They found a cure, a medicine already tested. They say just waiting for somebody to buy it and do mass production. And so the thing is that when these types of things happen, the potential, and we watched a movie, and people might think that this is all fictional and stuff, but the movie that we were watching was called Containment, was it?
Yeah.
I think. And they had already had a vaccine that was available to the public, but they weren't releasing it yet.
Mhm.
So my guess is that there's probably a vaccine out there already.
Yeah, could possibly be. Let's see here. And Marcia says, I think we'd already progressed by now. I'm not too worried. I've already progressed by now. Okay, so Prophecy Sandy Sands, is it the malaria cure? I would totally be too leery about, we're too early in the game to even.
I mean, the fact that someone could say that they have had a way to come up with a V for, a solution, it just really does speak to the fact that, that just doesn't seem like it would be possible in the time frame. They'd have to go through clinical trials and they'd have to have tests and they'd have to.
It doesn't happen that quickly. It's just impossible.
Happen like that.
It's impossible. Even during the 1918 pandemic, this pandemic ran till like 1920 or 21. We're going to go into that in a little bit until since I get chronic migraines and dry cough around winter and fall. So internally, this kind of freaks me out a little. It seems every time now I have a headache or wake up in cold sweats, my anxiety.
Well, see, the placebo effect and the nocebo effect are very much something.
Yeah.
They are a part of our ability to create damage within our body or to repel that damage and to create health for our body. And I really do believe that we have so much more to offer as our own healers than we even potentially realize.
But we have to be very mindful of what we're ingesting, what we're exposing ourselves to. I mean, just those little lines in the sky, releasing all sorts of aluminum and just all sorts of chemicals that break down your immune system. And unless you're doing something to regenerate, then it's gonna, it's like we all have. If you keep your cancer fighting cells ahead of the game, then you're fine. It's when you're not taking care of yourself, you're not sleeping right, you're not eating right, you're not protecting your immune system, and not just by what you're eating or exposed, but how you think. If you're a constantly anxious person, if you're constantly in fear and guilt, you're going to decrease your immune system because every cell in your body will respond to how you feel.
Now, do you guys remember what the whole concept of the cell phone radiation exposure, all of that was a very, very much a concern worldwide. The information is not out about this for a reason. There's a reason that we all carry a transmitter receiver right next to our body most of the time.
Many people sleep with it.
I mean, Wi-Fi signals, cell phone signals, 3G, all those G's. These are all possible contributors to why we are the way we are.
So Ray says,
autoimmune disease where your histamine system is a drama queen and you're allergic to everything in reaction to triggers are anaphylaxis and can be even reaction to certain smells, clothing. So somebody was asking.
Yeah, Dylan was asking what that was.
And
Ray.
Mast cell activation syndrome.
Right. And it's like, what's that other one that, the little things that happen in the skin? Morgellons. And I mean, there's just all sorts of stuff because we're so exposed to so many chemicals that it overwhelms your immune system and your immune system starts attacking you. It's not what's outside of us that's going to kill us, but it's our immune system responding to it.
And thanks to the president for recommending chloroquine, because there's a couple that decided to use the president's advice and they used chloroquine phosphate, which is
the raw form
of it. And it actually kills what parasites in
Koi
like,
fish.
koi fish. And the woman here in Arizona decided that she had some, and
fish.
she offered it to her husband, and
Took some herself.
she took some herself. Her husband died recently.
Within 20 minutes, he started feeling hot flashes in his body. He started to sweat, and he died.
And she's in critical
condition.
And she said that the reason that she went and did that was because the president said that it was a game changer.
Yeah. So we've got to be very leery. So let's see here.
And the thing about chloroquine is that there are reasons for, prescribing hydroxychloroquine. And those are for people with lupus, people that have malaria, that now can't get it because now it's being used up for CV.
Exactly. So Ray says that the actual immunization won't be available until 2021. So, that tells you something. Let's see here. What else?
Prophecy says, take care of yourself, Ray. I know some people with the same medical condition. I hope you can get the foods you can eat that don't trigger your histamine.
Yeah, and nowadays with people hoarding everything, it's so hard to get stuff. Not a lot left at the stores, and I have them delivered left at my door and wait till they get in their car and then wipe down everything. Because even that's dangerous, it's because you don't know. I mean, this is like today when we went to the park, we go out and get a little sun and get a little movement. Somebody coughs and, people are distant, but even that, you don't know who's been in the area that you are. I mean, I see kids playing in the playground, swinging, and I'm like, how can parents let their kids do that? I mean,
the UK has a rule now. It's like only 2 people, I mean,
if you're not from the same household, you can't be touching the same. I mean, people are not taking this serious enough. So my Kentucky governor said he will take the lives of his people over the Easter date.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And that's great that the governors do have that authority, that even if our fearless leader decides to send everyone out to get slaughtered, that the governors will do the right thing. Let's see here.
Ray says, wow, I'm a weaker American and our healthcare system has already put my family debt. We had a savings and my healthcare wiped it out, plus some.
And that's why I say when people live paycheck to paycheck and rack their credit cards for things they don't need, but things they want, that's so irresponsible, and it's like this generation lives beyond their means. They're getting things that they don't need. They want choices of stuff. And it's like, choices? I truly believe people are going to learn from now on. I would hope so. Marcy says, no way this will end in April. I have a feeling it's going to explode once we go back to everyday life again. Exactly. And do we wonder if that's what they want? Is that what they want? Because, okay, let's see here, because I do want to share the timeline. Let me go here. We're going to talk about, and history always repeats itself, We figure we'd learn from this 1918 pandemic, okay? I don't know if many of you have heard, but in 1918, a new influenza V emerged during the same time period of World War I was taking place. The conditions of World War I, overcrowding and global troop movements helped the 1918 flu spread. The vulnerability of healthy young adults, and the lack of vaccines and lack of V's and treatment created a major public health crisis, causing at least 50 million deaths worldwide, including approximately 675,000 in the United States alone. Below is a historical timeline of major events that took place during this time period.
675,000 people is a lot in that world in that time, because the population of the United States was about a third of what it is now. We have like 330 million. I don't know what, a third of that. Right. And you've got your number. So 675,000 is a sizable amount
Yeah.
of people that died.
So in April, it entered the U.S. World War One with 378,000 in the armed services.
Yeah, the U.S. entered World War One.
Right.
Yeah.
So in March of 1918, outbreaks of flu-like illnesses are first detected in the U.S.
They do call it the Spanish flu, but you'll find out why.
Yeah.
More than 100 soldiers at Camp Funston in Fort Riley, Kansas, became ill with the flu. Within a week, the number of cases quintuples, goes five times.
Yeah. So sporadic flu activity spreads unevenly throughout the U.S., Europe, and possibly Asia over the next 6 months. Let me see. So this goes April.
Oh, it's like this.
Yeah.
It's really.
So in June 1917, a draft is established to increase the number of soldiers. Army begins training recruits at 32 large camps, each housing 25,000 to 55,000 soldiers.
That should have been right after that.
Okay.
Yeah. So in April, after March, when they detected the flu the first time in Fort Riley, first mention of influenza appears in April 5 weekly public health report. The report informs officials of 18 severe cases and 3 deaths in Haskell, Kansas.
So May 19, by May, hundreds of thousands of soldiers travel across the Atlantic each month as they are deployed in World War I.
So the soldiers from Kansas are deployed, and they go along with the hundreds of thousands of soldiers that traveled across the pond over to Europe.
Right.
In September of 1918, the second wave. So this is one wave.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that big of a deal. The second one was the juggernaut. The second one was the one that really caused the pandemic. The second wave of flu emerges at Camp Devens, a United States Army training camp just outside of Boston and at a naval facility in Boston. Between September and November, a second wave of flu peaks in the United States. This second wave is highly fatal and responsible for most of the deaths attributed to the pandemic.
New York City Board of Health adds flu to the list of reportable diseases and requires all flu cases to be isolated at home or in a city hospital. By the end of September, more than 15,000 cases are reported at Camp Devens, equally about 1/4 of total count, resulting in 757 deaths.
The 1918 flu pandemic virus kills an estimated 5,000.
You know, it's crazy that we are censored. Oh, it's crazy.
During October alone, 90,000 people died.
Yeah.
In the fall of 1918, the United States experiences a severe shortage of professional nurses because of the deployment of large numbers of nurses to military camps in the United States and abroad, and the failure to use trained African American nurses.
Chicago chapter of the American Red Cross issues urgent call for volunteers to help nurse the ill. Philadelphia is hit hard, and with the pandemic flu V, more than 500 corpses await burial, some for more than a week. Cold storage plants are used as temporary morgues, and manufacturers of trolley cars donate to underpacking crates for use of coffins. And here we are moaning about, I mean, some companies don't want to go into making masks and making respirator. They're moaning about stuff. It's like the individuals back in 1918 had more cahoots than the people now. It's like people now, I really don't understand.
Chicago, along with many other cities across the United States, closes theaters, movie houses, and night schools and prohibits public gatherings.
Does it sound familiar? San Francisco Board of Health requires any person serving the public to wear masks and issues strong recommendation to all residents to wear masks in public.
New York City reports a 40% decline in shipyard productivity due to flu illnesses in the midst of World War I.
So then we got November 1918. The end of World War I enables a resurgence of influence as people celebrate Armistice Day and soldiers begin to demobilize. Salt Lake City officials place quarantine signs in front and rear doors of 2,000 homes where occupants have been struck with the flu.
And by the end of World War I, the U.S. military grew in size from 378,000 soldiers in April 1918 to 4.7 million soldiers. And so, December of 1918, public health officials began education programs and publicity about dangers of coughing and sneezing, careless disposal of nasal discharges.
Committee of the American Public Health Association encourages stores and factories to stagger opening and closing hours and for people to walk to work when possible instead of using public transportation to prevent overcrowding.
In January, a third wave of influenza occurs in the winter and spring of 1919, killing many more. The third wave subsides in the summer.
So in San Francisco, 1,800 flu cases and 101 deaths are reported in the first 5 days of January.
Many San Antonio citizens begin complaining that new flu cases aren't being reported and that this is fueling another influenza surge.
So do you see this? It's not being reported. That's why I said we can't really. 706 cases of influenza and 67 deaths are reported in New York City, triggering fear of a reoccurrence of a severe flu activity.
Trustees of Boston City Hospital asked Mayor for a special appropriation of $3,000 to study the treatment of influenza.
So we got February, influenza appears to be nearly eradicated in New Orleans as numbers of reported case drops.
Illinois passes a bill to create a one-year course to become a practical nurse, an effort to address the nursing shortage the pandemic had exposed.
And this little timeline is not at all. We watched a documentary that was like incredibly eye-opening. I mean, this is like, I think they've like vanilla coded it, this one.
Yeah, because it's from the CDC.
It's from the CDC, but if you Google the 1918 pandemic documentary, you will see the amount of deaths, the smell of death throughout, the amount of people that were actually affected, and how it appeared that it was like taken care of, and then it came back with a vengeance.
At Versailles Peace Conference, while negotiating the end of World War I with other world leaders, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson collapses. Some historians speculate he was weak from influenza, which was still rampant in Paris.
So this is just like a very vanilla, timeline. If you really want to really get the gist of it, you have to not obviously look at the CDC, but documentaries with the real history behind it.
There's a lot of information available. The generation that lived through it has obviously pretty much passed on, but their records on video still live on in different documentaries, and some of the things that they talk about are absolutely striking. One of the things that was really interesting to me was that although there wasn't a vaccine for it, there wasn't something that to help it. The most important thing that they found that was beneficial to recovery of anyone inflicted with the pandemic flu of 1918 was the care that they received from nurses, from the caregivers, the people that were at their bedside and took care of them and loved on them and provide, this pandemic that we're dealing with now, people are literally dying alone. Mm-hmm. They can't have their relatives. They can't have family members in the rooms with them as they may pass on.
This is crazy. So let's see here what we
got. Sandy says, Mark, could you give some advice on the types of food that could help our body fight this V?
Well, anything that's going to increase your immune system. Turmeric is a natural anti-inflammatory. Garlic, oil of oregano is something like every morning before we eat, I create this little cocktail for us. Apple cider vinegar, turmeric, oil of oregano, ginger, raw ginger, raw garlic, anything to help the body build defenses. Fruits, vegetables, things that are natural, stay away from preservatives and things that the body's just going to break down your natural immunity. Obviously, washing, your hands, like keeping yourself away from people, keeping your sanity, because I believe your mind is very powerful. It can make you or it can break you. Just natural foods, hydrate yourself, making sure that you're taking in lots of fluids. Green tea is something and lemon and lime. I've been adding a lot of lemon to our green tea, which again, things that are going to help alkalinize your pH. And
I think one of the things that people fall back on are the old comfort foods, like your favorite brand of potato chip,
Right.
or your favorite chocolate, or this isn't time to indulge in your favorite snack foods.
No.
At this moment in time. It's never a good time to indulge in snack foods like that. But at this crucial time, when your immune system is being ravaged by the potential of a V that we don't even have any weapons for in our bodies, it's time to, equip ourselves, to arm ourselves with those tools that we need.
And not to overeat,
to
not to overeat, because if you're putting too much strain in your digestive system, your body has to work through, your liver has to work really hard. No alcoholic beverages, keep the sugar to minimum, because sugar puts a lot of strain in the cells. So it's just eating the organic whole foods, not overeating, just eating enough. I mean, I've lost some weight, but it's like something that I don't want to sit there and pig out. We're not training as hard because their gyms are closed, so you can't really get a great training. And it's important to get used to not overeating, because things get worse and food rationing gets even more depleted. You're not to teach yourself not to eat as much. So what you do eat, let it be something that's nutritious and valuable for your cells. You're not eating out of comfort, but you're eating to build your immune system to keep yourself healthy.
Well, Elliot left Florida and is back in the UK. And he says, yep, we're not allowed to meet with friends. You're allowed out once a day to exercise, only alone or with household members, and you're allowed out to buy essentials. And, some people might say, oh, that's Marshall, whatever, potential thing. But
that's
the
smart.
thing is that there's a fine line between going into that type of mentality where you think it's all being restricted, draconian reason, or being done to protect the public. There's a fine line.
Yeah, and because they didn't protect the public in 18 like they should have, they had the parades and all sorts of stuff, and people were just out and about. It spread like crazy. And once this thing starts to take a life of its own and starts to mutate, they were in trouble. That's why that original thing that we read, that for the first 2 to 5 days is imperative, because once it starts to get into your system and it starts to mutate and it starts to do things in your lungs, and now it's airborne, and they were saying originally 6 feet. This thing travels a lot more. I've heard up to 15 feet, if not more. And if it stays alive 17 days on a surface, you got to know this stuff it means business. It really does.
So Ray says, well, we weren't living beyond our means at all. We had a good nest egg until our current leader came in, and our insurance rates and what was covered more than tripled. We don't even own a credit card.
Well, I wasn't saying that but most people. I mean, this day and age, most people do live beyond their means. They buy stuff. I mean, how many people, if you look at their closet, they have more clothes than they actually need, more pair of shoes than they can actually use, rack up credit cards. And I'm not saying you, but the majority of people in the United States and even in the world live way beyond their means, and it's when something like this happens that people are living paycheck to paycheck or racking up their credit cards, what's going to be the outcome? It's like people have just been lured in with advertisement. They see something online, they have to have it, and that's not good. So Marcy says, it's weird because I go for walks for some exercise and I feel crappy outside, then back to normal inside. I wonder if it's just in the air. Well, those little lines that we see up there, and I notice that sometimes. So for the past couple of days, the sky's been blue. It's been too windy, so they can't do it. But when we are out there, I kind of start feeling a little bit of pain in my lungs. I've felt shortness of breath the other day, but it's something that they're putting on those things.
So Dylan says, Marcy, I don't know. It's the opposite for me. I have to constantly be outside. Being inside makes me severely depressed at times.
Yeah. These are times that we have to make exception, because if it gets even more stringent and people are not even allowed to go out for fresh air or whatever, then you've got to find ways of dealing with that. It's like, I think that the generation now compared to 100 200 years ago, where people really had to face stuff, I mean really heavy duty stuff, um they just, you know what is that saying? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Or there was another saying that I heard today. Can't remember.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those generations that went through the hardships that, the generations were exposed to in the back, the back century, the past century, the Depression, the Dust Bowl years that people talk about. Oprah Winfrey talks about how she doesn't waste a piece of toast and puts it in the fridge, because you just don't throw food away.
You get programmed.
You're taught.
Yeah.
And I think in this age of excess that we've been given, that people don't appreciate things as much as the older generation.
A penny is a penny. A piece of it. It's like, you don't just throw stuff away, and people take things for granted until something like this happens, and then they realize, wow, it's just, like I said, I came from a communist country, and I don't know if it's in my, but yeah, I don't take nothing for granted. I really don't.
Ray says it's very depressing inside. I've been in training for this for 3 years. The only thing that's changed for me is toilet paper isn't available.
And funny enough, we've had the 3 rolls before this whole thing. We couldn't buy any toilet. We had to buy tissue paper. And because we've gone into the habit of washing, I've always washed myself, with soap and water and then dry. But it's
yeah,
toilet paper of all things,
So Ray says cayenne.
Yeah, cayenne it's also good, but some people become a little bit agitated by it because it is spicy, but it is, I prefer turmeric, which is a much gentler, but cayenne is good as well. It cleans your blood.
So Sandy says, thank you, my friend.
You're very welcome. Marcy says, my mom has cancer, so I've been staying with my aunt. It's tough. We haven't been able to see her, but we have to keep her safe. For sure. People that are, immune, what's the word I'm looking for? Compromised, and people that are sick. Yeah, and I know it's rough. It's tough because a lot of the people in the nursing homes look forward to their grandkids visiting or their kids visiting, and now there's no visiting at all. I mean, this is really, really sad.
Dylan says, haha, I've like 5 shirts and 4 pairs of pants. That's it. I haven't really shopped for clothes in a year. I don't even shop in stores, mostly online. Guess I lucked out now with the whole distancing.
Yeah, minimalism. It's a beautiful thing. It really is. Prophecy End of Day says, I don't know if this spreads to dogs. I've heard some dogs have been testing. They've tested dogs. I don't know. I've been to test. Or
I don't know if they have they.
Yeah, I saw some sort of article that a couple dogs have gotten it. Wow. So the dog might have had it. I did read something like that. So, yeah, it's crazy stuff. So let's see here. What else do we got? Oh, this is, I want to share this. Let me cue it first. And I'm not going to put the volume on it. Just going to do this. So I don't know if you guys have heard this, but it's kind of scary. They were saying that some kids were doing this. Another group, neo-Nazis, were
being encouraged to spread the V around if they have it by touching things. And
yeah. So here's pretty disturbing. Okay, oops, I have to start from the beginning. I thought I had stopped it, but hold on. Okay. She tested positive and was caught spitting on fruits.
That is so.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, pretty crazy stuff. I mean, who would do that? You know, who would actually do that? You've got to be. I mean, that person should be jailed for slaughter. What is it?
Manslaughter.
Murder. Yeah, murder, some sorts. So prophecy says, I don't know if this spreads. Oh, I already read that. I don't do spicy food well, says Dylan. So let's see here.
Come on, Dylan, you're from Texas and you don't do spicy? You don't do Tex-Mex? Oh, wait, I think you're originally from Arkansas.
So we already spoke about the guy who.
Yeah.
Right, so let's see here. Oops. Let's see what other article we got. So this whole concept of waiting another few weeks and then letting people out and resume, open everything up, you know, it'd be very devastating if we look at history and how the pandemics went in stages. As we read what the CV stages are, that you could feel okay, you could feel like you got the symptoms, and all of a sudden think you're out of the woods, and it's still proliferating in your body, creating problems and becoming even more infectious. Where even tests wouldn't show. You would need like a CT scan or an X-ray. So the governor, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, said on Fox News Monday night that lots of grandparents would be willing to die in order to save the economy for their grandchildren. That is euthanasia to me. That's like genocide. That's like population control. So they're just going to allow the elderly to die so that the economy stays alive. Money, people's lives. Money, people's lives. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. I mean, how can people think like this? Seriously.
Yeah. Texas, what is it? Are we reading it?
Yeah, so.
Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said on Fox News Monday night that lots of grandparents, all of you who are older, grandparents, would be willing to die in order to save the economy for their grandchildren. What they're saying, no one reached out to me and said, as a senior citizen, are you willing to take a chance on your survival in exchange for keeping the America that all America loves for your grandchildren and children? And if that's the exchange, I'm all in, Patrick said on the air.
So this great America, I mean, we look at the history of this country that has invaded other countries to put their bases in there, to take goods from other countries, to do the things that this military industrial complex has done for many years. That's the great America. The great America that worries more about the stocks. Is it ding, ding, ding? What's that?
Dow Jones.
Yeah. Over people's health. That's the kind of America, that we're about. I just think there's lots of grandparents out there in this country like me. I have 6 grandchildren. That's what we all care about. And I want to live smart and see through this. But I don't want the whole country to be sacrificed. And that's what I see. Yeah. I mean, seriously.
Well, there's a grandma who has a different opinion. And she was on Twitter on Mr. Patrick's page. I'm a grandma. My grandkids don't want me to die to help Wall Street recover. You call yourself a principled conservative. You need to rethink everything about those principles because many people think you're a monster after what you said today.
And I'm sure he's getting a lot of blowback.
It sounds like something that is very much social Darwinism at its finest. It's survival of the richest,
Yeah.
survival of the most important, of the ones that make a difference. And well, if you're older, your time is up. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's pretty messed up. Even the president had said the other day that we get a lot of people that have money that have been tested. Yet those people that really need the test have not been able to be tested. If you have money, but according to our great leader, that's just how life is, he said. That's how life is.
Yeah, that's it. That's just the way life goes.
If you're money, you have, the capacity of getting in front of the line while everybody else has to wait in line or never get anything. So this stimulus bill is very worrisome. And the things that they're sneaking in there, and that's what Congress does, I don't want to play favorites for either side because I believe both wings belong to the same bird. I think they're playing us. Politics is dirty, and I don't believe that any particular party really cares about us. They all have masters and they all have puppeteers pulling their strings. But this is one of the things that kind of, the mark of the beast. They're talking about digitizing money. As we know, paper money has absolutely zero value. It's like no longer worth, like before it was based on gold. They took their gold, they put it in a safe, and they gave you a note paper, saying you gave us this amount of gold, so we're holding it safe for you. Well, that no longer is true, right? I'm trying to get this thing turned off. Okay. So the CV stimulus offered by the House Financial Service Committee creates new digital dollars. So let's see here. Somebody says they added an update. The final version of the economic stimulus package offered by Speaker Pelosi in the House of Democrats no longer includes the U.S. digital dollar proposal. However, the language as proposed by Chairwoman Waters of the House Financial Service Committee still contains this language. Links to the original and updated stimulus bills with the latest language are at the end of the story.
As the markets continue to drop and the U.S. looks to Congress for agreement on a massive stimulus package to save the economy from impacts of the CV pandemic, the newest offer by House Democrats includes a very forward-looking kind of stimulus, the creation of a digital dollar and the establishment of digital dollar wallets, in what will send shockwaves through the cryptocurrency and blockchain industry, particularly for those following central bank digital currencies around the world. This signals the U.S. is serious in establishing infrastructure for a central bank digital currency.
What's this thing doing here? So both Speaker Pelosi takes responsibility for workers and family acts and the Financial Protection and Assistance for American Consumers, States, Businesses, and Vulnerable Population Act, introduced by the Chairwoman Maxine Waters of Financial Service Committee, introduces these concepts today as a way of delivering the economic stimulus payment to the U.S. citizens.
The bill establishes a digital dollar, which it defines as a balance expressed as a dollar value consisting of digital ledger entries that are recorded as liabilities in the accounts of any Federal Reserve Bank or an electric unit of value redeemable by any eligible financial institution as determined by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System.
Additionally, a digital dollar wallet is identified as a digital wallet or account maintained by a Federal Reserve Bank on behalf of any person that represents holding in an electronic device or service that is used to store digital dollars that may be tied to digital or physical identity.
A mandate also requires all member banks establish a pass-through digital dollar wallet to all customers eligible for the stimulus. Member banks include those banks that are members of the Federal Reserve and regulated by the Fed. Additionally, non-member state banks, those that are not members of the Federal Reserve and regulated by the FDIC, could opt in to offer pass-through digital dollar wallets as well.
So let's see here. think of what.
Digital dollars. Can you
Yeah.
believe it? We're at
Mhm.
the point where now they're actually saying that the actual bill that you carry in your purse or wallet is now a tainted, dangerous, V prone
Mhm.
type of piece of paper that is not sanitary and that should be, done away with.
And this,
Um,
yeah,
it's like it's a part of that whole push for a cashless society.
and this has been going on for a little while here, and you're looking at. This is an article from 2018. The cashless society is a con, and big finance is behind it. So they've been working on this for a while. And what better way? I mean, this is like this opportunity for them to take away more of our freedoms, to like really just, you know, we have to look at the bigger picture here. All over the Western world, banks are shutting down cash machines and branches. They're trying to push you into using their digital payments and digital banking infrastructure. This was 2018.
Yeah. Prophecy in today says, oh no, wait. Let me see. We've got a lot of people commenting.
But this is, the mark of the beast. They're like really, we can learn from the Marxist philosopher Antonio Gramsci in the regard his concept of hegemony referred to the way in which powerful parties condition the cultural and economic environment in such a way that their interest begins to be perceived as natural and inevitable by the general public. Nobody was in the street shouting for digital payment 20 years ago, but increasingly it seems obvious and natural that it should take over. I mean, yeah.
So prophecy says, after my dog died, then my gland swelled up and then moved into my jaw.
Wow.
So, and temple area. So I think it was my dog, but he was cremated right away. And Ray says, or cats. I have a service dog. And Dylan says, I have 2 cats. I really hope it's not an animal thing as well. Well, it is an animal thing because these flu viruses, they come from, they're zoonotic. So they come from the animal kingdom, whether the animal kingdom includes birds or pigs or horses, or bats. It's something that begins and mutates through the animal kingdom. And we are animals.
Yeah, we are.
I don't know if people realize it or not. I think we're not, but times like these, we see that people do behave like animals.
So Prophecy Day, End of Days says, I have an old dog, 18 years old, and a cat. They are doing well. The dog that died was in good health, so it's weird, but I'm watching my animals for any symptoms. Yeah, and sometimes the symptoms don't come right away, as we explained in the beginning of the show. It might take a while before you're actually, because it works so slowly, and it's. So sorry about your pet.
Yeah, so sorry. Wow. Yeah. I mean, 24 hours, just like that.
Yeah.
Marcy says, it better not spread to my dogs. If my dog ever gets ill, I'll be calling the president myself.
We're dealing with uncharted territory, really. Everything that our theories, we haven't even began to understand what's happening here. We really, crazy stuff. And Ray says, I saw a horrible meme that said, if you want to find out if you're infected, drink out of a rich person's cup. Madonna, we saw something in Madonna the other day, and oh my gosh, the plastic surgery, she doesn't even look like Madonna anymore, said something about the CV is the greatest equalizer.
Right.
And she's been getting a lot of
flack
about it. Because it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. If this gets you, it gets you. It's an equal opportunity destroyer.
So there's a conversation here on our chat about adrenochrome.
Oh, yeah.
And basically, it's fluid from the pineal gland of children that apparently is used by the elite,
the wealthy,
in order to make them look younger. And that's kind of like there's so much that we don't know, that we don't understand, that's
we haven't
not
been told.
exposed. But there are lots of people who know about certain things,
Yeah.
and some people would call it conspiracy, but
Nowadays,
You know,
with everything happening,
I mean,
no,
so were the planes in the sky and the little lines that they make.
Yeah.
That was also
consider
conspiracy at one point. Nobody thought that we would have the world we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
That entire states could be placed in lockdown. That
Yeah.
entire countries
Right.
could be placed in lockdown.
Q is a computer program, is it not? That kind of gives information and talks about, all these crazy cults that are, call it the enlightened ones or whatever else. Yeah, there's just so much information out there. Your head could spin. So the person sending the memo was suggesting only rich people can get testing. Well, as of now, that seems to be, they're getting tested before anybody else,
But what's new?
Mm-hmm.
It's always been the thing. The privileged, the elite, the rich, they always get in front of the line.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how things are.
Yeah.
And that's the president even acknowledged it, like we said last week. I have no problem going digital, says Dylan. I don't use cash very often anyways, and I'm used to banking online.
There's a bigger picture to that. It's not, there's a bigger thing to that than just, it seems very convenient and very normal,
sanitary,
and everything else, but there is something bigger with that. Just like when they took our gold away and no longer people were able to carry on their gold, and there's no longer, if you look at conveniently, it's no longer in the gold standard, it's just a piece of paper. And there's a very cynical plan behind the digital money thing.
There are those out there that are talking about QAnon being, ushering in this new liberating world that we're going to be a part of. That President Trump is doing his best to fight for justice and liberty and the freedom of all, and to change this world and to take it away from the corrupt and to, put it in the hands of the people and to restore what belongs. But honestly, people, you look at the man, you see his behavior. Do you literally think that the man even has a soul, has a heart, has an inkling of mercy or a conscious being of light? I just don't see it.
No, I just see a man that's full of ego, that only cares about, what are people talking about me? What are they saying? I'm doing everything good, right? He just wants this constant praise, and he doesn't care about the people. He doesn't.
So if you think that, President Trump is like the King Cyrus who's going to be used and come in and to be able to bring in this, Christians are like all behind, a lot of them are all behind Trump and everything. And it's like, the dollar is Trump's God. The dollar, gold is Trump's God.
Totally. So let's see. What else we got here? That's pretty much it.
Dylan, I think that one of the things that you might want to try to do is to connect with somebody. You don't want to be alone. Yeah. You don't want to make your life a lonely life, because a lonely life is a life that you don't want to have. You want to be able to be in the lives of others.
It's important. I mean, we are social beings, and even little premature babies, unless they're being held by the nurses and have some sort of contact, they die, because we're social beings. We at least require a mate or someone, to love, and someone to love us, because that's how we were made, and it's important. It's important to, gather, whether it's right here virtually, talking to one another. Obviously, you enjoy that because you get to interact with those here in chat and with us, and it's important. It's one that I notice, and I know it's imperative that we quarantine ourselves, and but there's something behind what is taking place, the lack of gathering, and we have to, because if not, many people will die. But I can't put my finger on it. I've got this feeling that there's just something, that old saying, something wicked this way comes, and I feel it. I feel it in my gut, and I've been feeling it for years. It's just slow acting.
I think it's a conditioning to not gather together, to not come together in one accord, and to be able to exchange ideas and to interact in a way that would make the world a better place. If we continue the practices of social distancing, it will destroy our society as we know it, because human beings need interaction. Human beings need touch.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to have, to hug and to hold and to feel. I mean, that's a part of our humanity.
Exactly.
And that's being taken away right now. But I mean, we're sacrificing it in hopes that we can, avoid this pandemic from becoming something even more sinister than 1918.
Yeah.
But the seeds of social distancing and staying away from people in isolation, and that's not what humans are made for.
No. But they've slowly been working to isolate us with all this internet, social media, which is really not social. People are less prone to go outside on an average day. I mean, look at Dylan, says that's what he's used to. It's this generation that's used to sitting home playing video games, not really interacting with nature or each other. And that's not what we're made up of. We require a lot more interaction. And Prophecy Day, end of day, says, I think both sides are the same. It all leads to the same path. Yeah, both wings belong to the same bird. Divide and they shall conquer.
I mean, they're complaining on one side of the aisle. The Republicans are complaining about the Democrats wanting to add things to this stimulus bill. And then on the other side of the aisle, the Democrats are saying, wait a minute, you guys are fighting for the rights of American Airlines and United and Apple and all these big corporations and the cruise lines and everything and the banks. And you're throwing things in for them. And, it's like, so there's this tit for tat fighting going on. Everybody wants to get something out of the deal. And the most important thing, but when you think about it, if the president says that everything's okay and that we're going to be fine, then why is he even behind a stimulus package then?
There's something very cynical in what's happening. And Ray, I'm so sorry. She says she goes to sleep crying, missing her husband. I am so sorry. I mean, it's got to be one of the hardest things, to lose the one you love. Like that lady whose husband died and she's in critical condition because I've taken those tablets that our fearless leader recommended. I can't even imagine what she's going through, and I'm so sorry.
People are being exposed to more and more loneliness by this new world that we're having to live in, and it's hurting a lot of people.
It is.
There's a lot of people that need interaction. So if you do think about it during your day. Call up a loved one, a friend, interact with people, try to get online and talk, because this is how we stay sane throughout this. We can't do it alone. We can't go it alone. I'm so grateful that I have you, that we're together,
Yes.
because if you're having to self-isolate yourself and, go into like this hibernation mode and stay away from people, it's not healthy, it's not healthy. In the long run, it's not healthy.
There's this channel that we watch. They're both fitness individuals, and he went to Canada. I guess he was taking care of some business before all this broke down, and he's not able to get to the United States, and she's by herself. And I mean, it's, to have, a husband, a girlfriend, or somebody that you live with that's there with you, through all these things is priceless. It's really priceless, because being alone during a crisis like this, it's got to be heart-wrenching. It's got to be horrible. And I'm so sorry for any of you who are having to do that, to be by yourself, that you don't have that special someone that you could at least talk to, at least hold one another at night, and even though things may not be okay, but they're there, and going through troubled times by yourself, it's got to be devastating. It really does. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important at this time to be able to have some sort of community, because when I used to visit New York, I think one of the coolest things about New York City was all the boroughs and all the little towns inside the massive city that was New York City, how people like interacted with each other. The guy that worked at the diner or the deli knew what the person, the regular, would come in and ask for.
Mm-hmm.
And there was interaction. There was like a connection there. And I can't imagine a big city like that that's so used to that type of, talk, touch, interaction, and, all that is now being told that you can't do that, and that's what society is based on.
Exactly.
And
Dylan says, I've been more homesick for my hometown more than ever. It sucks having friends I can't see. And Marcy says, yeah, it was really nice of Dylan and you all reaching out to me when I was sick. That meant a lot to me. I was worried. I was like, it's not like Marcy. I had a feeling that something was going on. And that's why I think I sent you a couple of emails. I send you a private message on Facebook. And I tried reaching you on text because we had your number. So finally, when I heard from you, I was like relieved that you were okay. And very sad. I had a phone appointment with my therapist today. Yeah, it's important. And I know that going to doctor's offices or therapists or in person puts people in a lot of risk. To at least have that communication with someone, and therapist, of course, is a great thing if you need to talk and vent and just cry on someone's shoulder. Sometimes that's all one needs. And Dylan says, we care about you, Marcy. It would be such a shame to lose an amazing person like you. I ditto that. I second that for sure. Yes. And Brianna joins us. Brianna says, yeah, this virus exaggerates the impact of loneliness. The bee. I'm sorry. It's hard to go through. You two are the most caring people I've seen on YouTube. You tell the truth, say it as it is. Truth is so important. Truth is, it's always been, a beacon for me. It may be hurtful. It may not, a lot of people may not agree with it, but the truth will always set you free, and it's important, to me anyway. It's very, very important. I think it's important to be honest about ourselves and our lives, and to be able to relate to people on a human basis, on a way that we can actually connect, not all the, surfacey conversational things that people talk about typically on YouTube a lot of times, and that we can just be real with one another. It's like, I'm really hurting. This is really affecting me.
I don't like what this feels like, or I am so happy that, this certain thing happened. It's like, this is why the channel is here. It's so that we can all express and be human.
Exactly. And Dylan says, I wish I could afford therapy right now. And that's something I thought I'd never say. It's just have someone you can talk to, because a lot of times all therapists do is just give you an ear, and then repeat what you said, and not downplaying therapy. Some people really need it and do great things, but sometimes a good friend, or someone you can talk to, and just a shoulder to cry on, because that helps. Being heard is very important. And Ray says,
I followed you too when you got married the first time. I'm so glad to have found you again. I love you too so much.
thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Ray.
Very much. And she says, my therapist knows my medical debt and it's pro bono. That's awesome. Having people that care about people's finances and are able to be there. So, and it's like, I look at this world and I see all the need for this financing stuff. We don't, if you really think about it, we don't need money. If people were caring enough to continue a society without debt, without money, without paying for services, and we really cared, we wouldn't have these problems. We really wouldn't. But people are, they call it socialism, they call it this, that, and the other. But capital, well, if you don't have money, socialist. What's the alternative? What we're seeing now, that our fearless leader would rather put people at harm's way so that the economy, digital money that's in the computer, that doesn't really exist, that's not against anything. We want the economy to be healthy, but people not healthy. Why are we doing that? I don't understand. It's really beyond me. I think in this day and age, no one should go hungry. No one should not have a roof over their head with so much that we have. There is so much resources that we could really use properly. No one should have to go hungry. No one should have to have a debt. No one should have to pay for things. I mean, if we worked it in a different manner, in a different way, this could be utopia. This could be heaven on earth.
What the president is advocating in opening up the country to potentially infect it and to affect the lives of thousands, if not millions of people to a virus, is just really unconscionable to think that lives would be placed as a sacrifice for an economic system that is being suppressed right now. That, if you just contain whatever's going on, right? If you try to, take care of the problem instead of like worrying about an economy that could bounce back at any time. It just tells you where the priorities are. And I can't help but make the comparisons to, a time back in the 40s when a certain dictator in Germany thought that it was the great solution to get rid of the problem of the Jew. The problem, that people want to just eliminate those that are weaker, those that are more vulnerable to illness. The fact that in order to save a system of like an economic engine, that they would want to sacrifice the life of any human being, any American, is absolutely unethical. And totally. To even advocate and to compare, the lives of one person being more valuable than the other, that, in this faux, like, sense of like humility, that one would say, oh, for my grandchildren, let me sacrifice myself. It's like, no.
For economy.
No.
For the economical wealth and health of a country. That's he pretends that this America is so like well, financially wise, and it's all a lie.
The whole stock market is built on a house of cards. What happened in 2008 was like this overvaluation of the digital, companies and stuff like that just blew right up, and caused so much havoc. And to think that a stock market is being given so much credit and as being this great system of like financial stability, when in times past, this is just a recent occurrence, but it's basically those that play the system and have the inside, information about, how this all works financially. They're the ones that benefit. The lay person that doesn't have the inside, information,
It's trickery.
they're not going to know.
Yeah,
I mean, I've always compared a stock market to like gambling.
Yeah, it's trickery. It's like, it's not real. Okay, it's trickery.
It's paper money.
Yeah.
It's things going up and down and buying against
money
a company
that doesn't have any value. You can wipe your what with a dollar bill. It doesn't have any value. It's not against anything whatsoever. They just print it out. It has no value whatsoever. So it was interesting what this Stephanie Talt said.
She's the one that's affected by, she's the mom and the one who has like possibly CV-19.
Who hasn't been able to get tested, who has been feeling very sick, and she's the one that says, don't go out there. The ones we read earlier, this is something else she said. I don't care how sick or scared or exhausted I am. I need to say this. So many of you told activists like me that we were extremists when we said the administration were following the path of the Nazis.
Now, according to yesterday's comments by the president, they're on TV literally saying that it's okay to kill millions of those other people, the less desirable people, the people like me, in the name of improving a bad economy and making life better for the deserving folks who are more valuable to society. And I would like to add that those people that are less desirable are all of us in the LGBTQ. We are all less desirable because we are all more vulnerable to illness and disease.
The elderly, individuals that are in poverty, people that, it's like neo-Nazi all over again, which is pretty sad. Let's see here. Marcy says, talking with you all and friends is what has been keeping me sane. I hear that. And Ray says,
she saved me. I have PTSD. I have childhood trauma. And then my baby brother died 2019 of an overdose. She said, no way was she leaving me due to finances.
Awesome person. Good people in the world still exist. And that gives me great hope. Because I tell you, there are some people out there that just, listen, can we all just go back to trading potatoes for currency?
Yeah, I mean, when the good old days when people just traded, bartered, and like, hey, I'll give you this if you give me that, and I'll help you help me. It was like people didn't like have to deal with the system.
No. And Marcia says, I'm dying to hug my dog, but I have to stay away from my mom for now. And he's at my mom's. I'm dying to see them. It's really tough. So sorry, Darcy. Marcy. Sorry, Marcy.
Ray says, I just want to hug anyone. Well, why don't we all just do a virtual hug right now? Everybody
squeeze away.
Virtual hug.
I think it'll be a long time before people could actually hug again. I'm a hugger. My hugs are pretty tight. And I'm like, yeah. Let's see here.
Marcy says, it really meant a lot to come home and see people care. We all need each other.
Definitely. And prophecy, the end of the day, says stock market is built up with bubbles. It's built up even more. When it goes, it's going to get bad. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So Ray says,
Thank you, Dylan. He was my best friend and he grew away and I failed him. I tried so hard.
What good is an economy if there's no one left to support it in the end? Such weird ways to look at things. I know.
Think about the scenario that the president of the United States is trying to present to the world, to Americans. America, go back to church. America, go back to work. America, go back to school.
Go
America,
back to traveling.
Go back to doing what you did before, and let's pretend like none of this ever happened. In the meanwhile, in the real world that we're living in, the governor of New York is facing a severe crisis as the cases of CV-19 has risen exponentially. Day by day, they're predicting that it's going to get worse and worse. And as this country catches on to what's happening in NYC and in California, this is going to affect everybody. So we put everybody back to work. We put, all the people back into the places, touching things and buying things and doing everything that normal things happen when people are doing things normally. And a virus is a part of the normal world that we're living in. What is going to happen to an economy then? What is going to do, what's going to happen when thousands of people get infected at a college basketball game or at a major sporting event or at a concert? I mean, it was one parade in Philadelphia that brought about the second wave of the Spanish flu.
In the meantime, we're also exhausting the hospitals, putting the healthcare providers at risk.
What happens when the doctors get sick?
Yeah.
And no one's there to care for the infirm.
And there's a lot of doctors getting sick. There was, let me see one here. Italian doctor who said he had to work without gloves dies from the CV. I mean, and many of them are just dying.
The woman that we've been reading from on their Facebook, she said when she went to the doctor's office, went to the medical center to get an X-ray, I think she was having done. She said the mood, the atmosphere was as if all of, like if you're on a plane and there's turbulence on a plane ride and the flight attendants are there to kind of calm you and get the jitters. When it's really serious, even the flight attendants don't really give you that sense of safety, So that was a sense that this woman was feeling from all the nurses and doctors at the hospital. Yep. Everybody is very much on edge.
On a good day, and I've worked in hospitals before, ever since the HMO came in and things just less and less help and more work. They want a person to do the work of 5. And people are stressed out on a good day, on a normal day without a pandemic. So I cannot even imagine. I mean, I can't. I mean, it just, it's just beyond imagining.
There are moms going into labor and they cannot even have their loved ones in the hospital bedside to help them and to go through the birthing experience.
We're in Arizona, Ray, at Apache Junction. She was asking where you guys located. And Dylan says, Ray, I'm sure it wasn't your fault. Don't put that blame on yourself. Exactly.
Ray says, we were both hurt as children, and I was the oldest, and he tried to protect me. And I tried to make sure he was safe when he would go missing. And then I thought he was better. I missed the signs.
Wow. And it shouldn't be up to a child to have to deal with such a horrible responsibility. I'm sorry that you had to go through that, Ray. And Ray says,
Dylan, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm a good listener.
Sounds like you're a great listener, Ray. And Brianna says,
a person with a healthy immune system can contract CV and may not need medical assistance.
If you caught the beginning of the show, it goes many stages, and it may appear as the person has no symptom, asymptomatic, but as this CV is literally like progressing and entering your lungs and different parts of your body organs like your heart, although you may not show any signs, it is literally destroying your system. There's a lot of information that is not out there, that is not known. This is not like your typical cold or flu at all. And I truly believe we haven't began to see the full effects of this bee. And Prophecy Day of Age says antibodies.
You know, it's kind of weird. Remember the vaping thing and popcorn lungs?
Mhm.
Could it be the same CV back then?
I think this has been around. If you ask my opinion, I think this has been around for a while. Okay, and because it's very slow moving. It's like, dude, like a turtle. I'll get there, and it's just been doing so. I thought of that as well. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, the vaping. They talked about, people that vape had popcorn lungs and their lung damage, and people on respirator.
Mm-hmm.
I think this has been going around for quite a while, and just mutating and carrying, and people are carrying it around in their lungs. And
there was something about the president back in January talking about getting vaping cigarettes back on the market.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh,
that?
Yes.
Remember that? We read about, like, he wasn't, like, he was being briefed about CV, and he was like, why can't we get vaping
peppermint flavor or something
back on the market?
Yeah, I thought of that as well. I'm like, I think this has been around for longer than we've been told. And it's just like a little, little by little, it's invading, it's doing things, it's creating skin problems for certain people. There's something bigger here that meets the eye. I can't put my finger on it. I just have this really gut-wrenching feeling, and usually my gut-wrenching feelings are pretty on target.
Well, although the president doesn't think that it's important to address the fact that the nation should be on a lockdown, the International Olympic Committee has postponed the Olympics until 2021 at least. And it is the first time in the history of the Olympic Games that they have ever been postponed in a peacetime. I mean, there are countries, literally 1.3 billion people in India are being put in lockdown for 21 days. The United Kingdom Prime Minister, he has made all these new stipulations and rules that are going into effect. We watched video in Spain of hospitals filled with people lining the halls, lying down in agony and in pain. It kind of resembles what was going on in 1918 when people were just falling and dropping like flies, when they would go in and they wouldn't come out.
And we've heard those rumors too, Ray, and I truly believe that that's what it is. And yes, prophecy, end of days, think that as well. I think so. And I think it's been going on for a while, but because it's a smart technology like nano, and it has, it doesn't just like send you into the hospital right away for certain people. And it's just like, it's like playing a game of chess, slowly knowing how to move your pieces. It's smart. It's not some dumb, V. It has, it's like the smartphone, the smart me. It's bio weapon for sure, in my opinion.
There's allusions back in different books that came out in the late 2000s and stuff that have scenarios that depict what was going on, potentially kind of like predicting.
Yeah, what's her name who died? Sylvia, who used to be Brown, who used to be on Montel William all the time. She predicted something was going to happen in 2020. They would come in, and then after it devastated, it would like mysteriously disappear. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that I think in this and why this was created and what it plans to do. Things that
it's hard to know what is truly happened. It's hard to know where it originated from. I mean, we were going to tell you guys about the Spanish flu, it's called the Spanish flu of 1918, but it never originated in Spain.
No.
The reason that it was called the Spanish flu is because the Spain news reporters and the news agencies that were in Spain reporting on this epidemic were the only ones, and this is in the world, that were actually sharing what was happening to the people of Spain. People of the United States had no idea. People in Germany had no idea. People in Great Britain had no idea. All of the news agencies were suppressing the information. So this is why Spain got the name. But the original V started, like we said earlier, in Fort Riley, Kansas. So it should be called the Kansas V.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're dealing with stuff that is beyond our imagination. Is beyond any pandemic movie. It's beyond anything that we've ever experienced in our lifetime. We've got to stay strong. We've got to take care of our immune system, of our health. We need to think positive thoughts, because your brain communicates with every cell in your body. If you're feeling sad, every cell in your body will be affected. It's hard times. We know. It's rough. It's tough. But we have to be strong. We have to understand that there is a reason for everything. And I truly believe that all this stuff that's happening will have some tremendous change spiritually. For those of you that, are spiritual, this has been written. And I don't believe in the Bible, but I do believe in writings, that, and even the Bible has some things in there that is prophetic. We are heading towards a shift, towards an awakening. This 3D world as we know it is about to change. And there are things that many of us don't understand. But do know this, that for every bad things that we are experiencing, there is a good outcome, a better outcome. We need to go through this as a species. I truly believe that.
I think one of the most wonderful things to draw from all of this is that there are families that are now spending quality time together.
Yes.
There are marriages that are probably able to heal because, they're able to communicate more now. Families, children are able to see their dads, and I saw kids playing with their parents and with their dads and stuff out at the park the other day, and a whole family was just, you don't see it anymore, but a whole family was just happy and engaging and having the picnic together and socializing with each other. And it was a beautiful thing. It was like a throwback to a time when I was growing up, when you were growing up, where people did do that, which is lost.
But even when I was growing up, because we came from Cuba and both my parents worked long hours to try to make ends meet, to live the American dream, because this whole materialistic world that we're living in makes people worry more about money than, instead of worrying less, having less so that you can spend more time with your family. Don't live beyond your means. And I think this might help a lot of people understand that you don't need to get a bunch of stuff that you want. You just need what you need. And what you really need is not that much, really. Really think about it. But you have to let go of all those old programming, of all that advertising on television, advertising on your smartphone, making you want to buy things that are not necessary. And we've lost our way. We really have. And Ray wants to know when we're on. We go live usually once or twice a week, depending. We try to do that. And but if you subscribe and hit that notification button, then surely will be notified. I just hope that, and we've heard rumors that they might start slowing down the internet. They might start taking it down. Right now, we're living in very uncertain times, really. I hope that doesn't happen, because a lot of people, this is the only source of socialization that they get, and especially if we're not allowed to go outside. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
But like prophecy end of days says, start looking for like-minded people around.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard to find like-minded people. There's so many people are so into the materialistic world, and they don't believe anything unless it's told by the news, and it's,
I mean, honestly, as a recovered shopaholic myself, that like to go to the mall and shop around and window shop and everything, this must be a real wake-up call to many people who live like that. I don't live like that anymore, but I did at one point. And they were so obsessed with things and going here and there. And, even the rich who are used to jet setting and traveling. I mean, I think of Will Smith, who can't has this insatiable like desire to want to experience new things. One day he's in Cuba, the next day he's in Belgium, and jet setting and traveling, and now they're stuck, right? They can't go anywhere, right? They're stuck in their mansions and stuff.
well, you see a lot of the
And they're bored. And they're bored.
Yeah, Instagram artists, people that are artists or singers or whatever, actors, they're stuck at home and they're like all depressed. And it's like, if you need to be constantly stimulated with external things, then you don't know yourself. Because one of the greatest gifts that we have is to be able to go inward and find everything that you need inside of you. We all have the capacity and that capability of doing so. But we have been trained like monkeys to always need to push buttons or look outside of ourselves, buy shiny things and clothes and this, that, and the other. And that's not life. That's not life at all. That's all a mirage. As we're quickly learning,
Ray says, I've been trying to talk my hubby into selling this house since we're empty nesters moving into a travel home. We don't need this house anymore.
Mark does have amazing intuition. I was only in the hospital overnight and he knew from the states away something was wrong. So trust his instinct. I've always had that instinct, as a child. I died when I was 1 year old. And I think having that near-death experience, as I always had this inner voice, this inner knowing, that, but I didn't I say, I think something is definitely wrong,
Yeah.
And I was like, that's
Yeah,
not.
because I mean, there was no response.
Yeah.
And, we didn't know if you were upset at us because of something that had happened or whatever, but we just wanted to make sure that,
I
the
felt that something
communication
was
lines
wrong.
were open.
Physically, something was wrong. And yeah, it's we as humans need to reboot, and look at life differently. Because life as we know it, even if the president gets his way and people go back, it's going to be a false sense of security, and things are not going to be all right. And you have to remember that, and you have to keep that. Not trying to fearmonger anyone, but there's an old saying in Spanish: "Guerra avisada no mata soldado." A war that is announced does not kill the soldier, because you're aware of what's going on, and you always have to be diligent and just understand that there is something taking place. Call it the age of Aquarius, call it whatever you want to call it. There's something that's going to change the way we know life,
Dylan says, I have social anxiety, so shopping in store, forget about it. But Amazon, Wish, I used to have a problem with online shopping, not even clothes, just stupid stuff that ended up on a shelf.
It's an addiction. It's an addiction that is probably placed there from your parents, from the time you're little, reward system. You get stuff, and it's like playing in Vegas with a little slot machine, and it's not a good addiction to have, because mindless shopping, money that's why people nowadays, 1 week of no work or whatever, people are like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What, you didn't save money for a rainy day? I've always been a saver. From the time I was a little kid, I always knew that you had to put money away, because You never know when you don't have any and you have that money there. That's how that works.
So Dylan says, Marcy, Mark has a spidey sense. And Ray says, I'm shipping myself to Lynna and Mark. Oh, well, exactly, says Marcy.
Spidey.
Spider-Man.
Yep.
Spider-Man.
Anyway, guys, I think we're going to call it quits. Thank you guys for tuning in, for being here in chat, for being as wonderful as you all are. I know we're living in very scary times, but we can never let fear dominate our hearts. Know that there's always a good thing from every bad thing that takes place. We may not understand it. It may be beyond our capacity. But know that this is just a stage that we're living in. Things play out. Some things are a tragedy, a drama. Other times there's a comedy. But it's a stage nonetheless. Whatever you believe in, if you are a believer of God, the great I am, spirit, the universe, whatever it is, know that you will not be forgotten and you will not be abandoned. We are living in very, very exciting times, although scary, but exciting at the same time. Life as we know it's going to change, but I believe that in the end, it's going to be for the well-being of all of us. Anything else you want to say?
Ray says, Dylan says, Ray, I'm sure I can fit in a box. And Ray says, love you guys.
Love you too, Ray.
Love you
Thank
too.
you for joining us.
Thank you for the show and being awesome. Prophecy in days.
And she's only 5'1", 106 pounds. Definitely can fit in a box.
Yeah, I think I have a box for you. And Brianna says, thank you for the show.
You're very welcome. And Ray says she talks to God a lot. There's definitely something higher, something greater, and we are all part of that energy source, We're going to be okay. In the long run, we're all going to be okay. Marcy says,
I was going to say that the same thing. I don't believe the Bible because it's been written and rewritten for 2,000 years. How did it be the same message? But there are prophecies in there.
Yeah. I believe that we've been given the opportunity to decode certain things that have been put in certain writings, the Bible, Sumerian tablets, all sorts of different things that it's almost like breadcrumb that we've left for ourselves. And what's happening now has to happen for the betterment of our species, for the betterment of our spirit, And sometimes I don't have words to explain what I want to say. But it'll all be okay.
I think that instead of being in an age of innovation and technological advancement, that the exact opposite has happened. People back thousands of years ago didn't need the wheel because the wheel wasn't necessary.
Mm-hmm.
People did things differently. They used their spirits more than their physical bodies. So we are literally in an age of regression, of we're falling apart as a society instead of we think we're advanced, but we're really not.
We're not.
Right.
But these times are going to get many to awaken and to realize who they truly are and what we are made up of. Not the external, but our internal.
And it's an opportunity to realize that you are your greatest healer, that you can rise above anything that's thrown at you, literally. And it's not about the physical body, because the physical body can get affected by things that happen on this planet. It's our spirit that can never be touched. You know, you can never damage a spirit,
Right.
you know.
You're divine. You're divine. All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead and call it quits. Have a great night. Take care of yourselves and each other. And till next time, we love you.
But remember to always love yourselves too.
Stay safe.